meeting is now being recorded as well as live streamed, so I'll take this adherent of the Housing and Technical Resources Committee on the 7th of February 2024. I've noted we've got Councillor Brogan, Archie Buchanan, Matthew Buchanan, Kalikis and Convery present. Councillor Cooper? No. Councillor Cowan and Councillor Cowie are present. Councillor Devlin? No. And Councillor Dewar is present. Councillor Fagan? No. I have present Councillor Faulkner, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Fulton and Councillor Gowland. We have apologies from Councillor Gray with Councillor Ferguson-Miller substituting. Also present Councillor Lambie, Councillor Lockhart, Councillor Mars. Apologies from Councillor McCallan with Councillor Johnson-Dempsey substituting. And also present Councillor McCreary, Councillor McLachlan, Councillor Ray, Councillor Shearer and Councillor Williams. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Helen. First item on the agenda, is there any declarations of interest? No. Next item is the minutes of the previous meeting. Beg your pardon?
Yes, we do.
Julia. Oh, sorry. Julia Mars.
Thank you, Chair. I would declare an interest on item 12, which is the proposal to lease the community shed at Lanark Racecourse.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Julia. Item 2 is the minutes of the previous meeting. Can I agree that's a correct record? Thank you. Item 3 is monitoring items, and it's a revenue budget 20. Beg your pardon? Councillor Lockhart.
Yes, sorry about that. I'd go with Julia Mars on that one for Lanark Racecourse.
Declaration of interest?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's fine. Item 3, revenue budget monitoring 23-24, housing and technical resources, excluding the housing revenue account. I'm going to ask Graham Booth to take us through that. Graham, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. The purpose of this report, which is on pages 15 to 19 of your papers, is to provide information on actual expenditure against budget for housing and technical resources, excluding the HRA, for the period 1st of April to 1st of December 2023. And this is our third revenue monitoring report to this committee for financial year 23-24. Section 5.1 on page 15 notes that following the Council's probable outturn exercise, the forecast for the budget to the 31st of March 2024 is a break-even position after approved transfers to reserves of 1.510 million. And this is made up of overspends in our estates and property maintenance services offset by an underspend in office accommodation. As at the 1st of December 2023, the position is also a break-even position against the phased budget. Appendices A to C on pages 17 to 19 provide details on the financial position and detailed variance explanations, proposed variants and approved transfers to reserves for each of the services are shown in Appendices B and C. I refer members back to section 2 of the report. Committee is asked to note the break-even position as at 1st of December and the forecast to 31st of March 2024 of a break-even position after approved transfers to reserves and to approve the proposed budget environments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Graham. I'll move that report.
I'll second it.
Is there any questions or comments? No. Thank you very much. Item 4 on the agenda is revenue budget monitoring 23-24. Housing and technical resources, housing revenue account. Back over to you again. Graham, please.
Thank you, Chair. Again, the purpose of this report on pages 21-23 is to provide information on the Housing and Technical Resources HRA for the same period, 1st of April to 1st of December 2023. Section 5.1 on page 21 notes that following the Council's probable outturn exercise, the forecast for the budget is a break-even position to 31st of March 2024. And this break-even position includes a lower than budgeted transfer from reserves being required in the financial year, and is assumed that the increased level of cost experience will be offset by an underspend in our loan charges. A reduction in spending on loan charges is anticipated in 23-24 from utilising the in-year benefit from the HRA Loans Fund review, and this work has been carried out and forms part of the 24-25 budget setting report for the HRA, which will be reported later on to the committee. So as at the 1st of December 23, there's a break-even position against the phased budget. And Appendix A on page 23 provides detailed variance explanations in the proposed variants for the HRA. Again, I would refer members back to section 2 of the report. The committee is asked to note the break-even position at the 1st of December and the forecast to 31st of March 2024 of a break-even position, and also to approve the proposed budget variants. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Graham. I'll move that report. Is there any questions or comments? No, thank you very much. Item 5 on the agenda, Capital Budget Monitoring 23-24, Housing and Technical Resources excluding Housing Revenue Account, and it's Lorraine O'Hagan. Lorraine, please.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning. Agenda item 5 then on page 25 is your standard capital budget monitoring report. Again, in line with the revenue reports, it's the third for the financial year and it reflects the position to the 1st of December 2023, which is accounting period 9. Section 3 of your report provides some background and advises members that the budget of 11.488, which is the revised budget, is a net decrease of 770,000 since the last report to this committee in early November. It reflects adjustments that were approved by Executive Committee in November last year and January this year, and those are noted in Appendix A on page 28 for your information, and it's really reflecting some additional funding into the programme and also just some housekeeping between the revenue and the capital programmes. Section 5 is your financial implications section. Section 5.1 notes the budget of 11.488 for the current year. And Section 5.2 provides an outturn position, again similar to revenue, where we're looking to advise members of where we think we will spend to in the current financial year. So current estimates are showing projections of 8.8 million of spend, and that's an underspend of just under 2.7 million. That's mainly due to the timing of spend on a number of multi-project, multi-year programmes that we have within the resource, and that results in budget being required into the new financial year rather than the current one. The main projects responsible for that are listed in section 5.3 for your information. It's appropriate to note that funding for these projects will just carry forward into the new year, so there's no issue in terms of the funding side of things. In section 5.4, we're showing the period 9 position there, so we had anticipated spend to date of 2.2 million and spend to the 1st of December of 1.988, so we had an underspend of 250,000. And again, that's reflecting the timing of project spend on the demand-led prioritised urgent investment programme is less than anticipated at that point in time. If I can refer members back to the recommendations then in section 2, and ask that the Housing and Technical Resources excluding Housing Revenue Account programme of 11.488 million and expenditure to date of 1.988 million be noted, and also that committee notes the projected outturn of 8.8 million. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lorraine. I'll move those recommendations.
And I'll second that.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? No, thank you. Item 6 on the agenda is Capital Budget Monitoring 23-24, Housing and Technical Resources, Housing Revenue Account. Back to you, Graham, please.
Thank you, Chair. Again, the purpose of this report, which is on pages 29 to 31 of your papers, is to provide information on the progress of the capital programme for the Housing and Technical Resources HRA, again for the same period, 1st of April to 1st of December 2023. Section 5.1 on page 29 notes the Housing Capital Programme for 23-24, totaling 67.443 million, and that's detailed along with the funding sources at Appendix A to the report on page 31. Actual expenditure to the 1st of December is 33.973 million, and that is 0.658 million ahead of programme, and this is due to the progression in terms of the number of buybacks through the open market purchase scheme being ahead of programme as at the 1st of December. Again, I note there that the current estimates suggesting an outturn in line with the budget of 67.443 million, and work will continue in the coming months over the next couple of months to deliver spend in line with the overall budget. I refer members back to section 2 of the report. Committee is asked to note the revised Housing and Technical Resources HRA capital programme of 67.443 million and expenditure to 1st of December 2023 of 33.793 million. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Graham. Is there any? I'll move that report.
And I'll second
Is
that.
there any questions or comments? No, thank you. Item 7 on the agenda, Housing and Technical Resources Workforce Monitoring, September to November 23. Elaine Maxwell for that, please, Elaine.
Thank you, Chair, and apologies, I've got a bit of a sore throat, so
Oh, that's
hopefully
all right.
that's okay.
I know what that feels like.
So committee will be aware this is a standard workforce monitoring report to provide you all with an update of the employment information for the period September to November 2023 for Housing and Technical Resources. As always, in terms of some of the key details, section 4.1 will detail the absence statistics for the resource, and we can see that the absence figure for November 2023 was 5.6% for the resource. That did represent a very slight increase of 0.6 when we were comparing ourselves to the previous month, although when we look at November 2022, we can actually see there was a slight decrease of 0.3%. And again, important to note that the figure for the resource at 2023 was 0.6 lower than the council-wide figure. I'm probably pleased to note that actually even just update from yesterday, our January figure for the resource was sitting at 5%. So certainly a lot of activity and the actions going in the right way. When we look at the absence figures as at November 23, we can see that the projected annual average for the resource for the year 23-24 is 5.7%, which is a slight increase on the council-wide projected annual average of 5.4%. And I think just to point that there's quite a lot of activity happening within managers and within personnel in terms of actions around maximising attendance. Section 4.2 details the occupational health information, which again you'll find in Appendix 2. And you see there was 190 occupational health referrals made during this period, which is an increase of 27 when compared to the same period last year. And again, looking at your appendix, you'll see that the predominant increase is around the occupational health referrals, that's the medical examinations. And members will know, I've mentioned before, that we've got a new provider. So certainly what we can see is that our medical referrals and our appointments are happening much quicker, and we're getting our appointments and our outcomes in much quicker than we have done before. So hopefully we'll continue to see that. Section 4.3 details the accidents and incidents within the resource, and we can see that there were 10 recorded within the resource for this period, and that figure remains unchanged when we look at the same period last year. Section 4.4 details the employee relations activity, and we'll see that there was one disciplinary hearing, one grievance hearing and one dignity at work complaint raised, and at the time of the report there were 3 appeals pending to be heard at the appeals panel during that period, although all have now since been heard. Section 4.5 details the leavers, and again, which can be found in Appendix 2, and you'll see that there were 19 leavers during the period eligible for an exit interview, with 4 being carried out. Section 4.7 shows that there were 37 employees left to resource, and you'll see the appropriate FTE assigned to that. Managers have indicated that 33 posts have been replaced. 2 posts were ended due to the end of a fixed term contract, and 2 posts had been held pending savings reviews. Section 5 shows the staffing watch information for the resource, and we can see that there's a decrease in the number of employees from June to the September staffing watch figure. And with that, I would refer committee back to section 2 of the report and ask committee to approve the recommendation to note the employment information for September to November 2023. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elaine, and I hope you feel better soon. That sounds a little bit rough. Get yourself a packet of lockets, I would suggest. I'll move that report.
And I'll second.
Is there any questions or comments? Starting to feel a tickly cough. That's why I switched the mic off. Item 8 on the agenda, and before I deal with item 8, before we move on to consider the report, I would like to take the opportunity to thank the tenant representatives on the budget scrutiny group and the tenant participation coordination group, and I believe we've got a member in the room at the back there. You're very welcome. Yet again, the tenant representatives on these groups have worked with us to develop and deliver a broad programme of customer engagement on this year's budget and to shape the proposals in front of us today. While we continue to face significant challenges, the commitment, knowledge and experience of the tenant representatives undoubtedly support us to ensure the tenants' views were appropriately considered as we develop the budget for 24 and 25. So, thank you very much again for that. I'm going to ask Stephen Gibson to take us through the Housing Revenue and Capital Account Budget 24-25. Stephen.
Thanks, Chair. The purpose of this report is to summarise the revenue assumptions for the housing revenue account in 2024-25 and to request approval for a proposed capital programme of £77.3 million. The background to the proposals for HRA in the capital budget are set out in Section 3. Section 3.2 draws your attention to movements from last year's budget, and these are listed in Appendix A, so Appendix 1. In total, these add £6.79 million onto the budget for next year. Section 3.3 confirms that a provision of £3.743 million has been made for bad debt, and that this includes a £300,000 budget for tenancy sustainment services next year. Following consultation with tenants, the report proposes a multi-year agreement in relation to the rent increase. Section 3.4 advises that a rent increase of 6.5% per year is being proposed for a 3-year period starting from 2024-25. If approved, this level of increase means that South Lanarkshire Council would be charging the 7th lowest rent amongst Scottish local authorities, and we'd still be charging the lowest rent of landlords to provide affordable housing in South Lanarkshire, so it's still affordable. Although a multi-year agreement is being proposed, it's important to stress that we'll still be engaging with tenants in a normal way on an annual basis, and we'll still be reporting to members this time next year before we agree the proposed rent and the capital programme for 2025-26. Section 3.5 advises that the Scottish Government's budget for affordable housing next year is facing a 22% cut. We're still awaiting for feedback from the Scottish Government about how that will affect our budgets, and we'll report back to members as soon as we got that information. The team are waiting for it. The HRA business plan, as always, assumes that the service will make annual efficiency savings, and next year we'll be making savings of £300,000. These are described in section 3.7, and as the report mentions, I can confirm these have no impact on service delivery. Members may recall that the Council approved the implementation of a loan fund review in 2020. Section 4 confirms that we are now recommending a similar approach for HRA. Section 4.3 advises that, if approved, the anticipated lifespan for stock inherited from the former district councils will increase to 40 years from 2004. This means that whilst the value of the loans will not increase, there will be an increase in interest charges over the period of the loan. Table 1 in section 4.4 shows that as of the 31st of March last year, the outstanding borrowing costs for HRA were £292.69 million. However, by increasing the lifespan to 40 years from 2004, this creates a technical overpayment, which is described as a recalculation adjustment of £114.4 million. Rather than taking the full benefit, section 4.5 confirms that for a 3-year period from 2023-24, we'll be utilising a sum of £22 million to reduce borrowing costs during that 3-year period. Sections 4.8 and 4.9 clarify that whilst additional interest of £41 million will be incurred, the principal sum of the loans won't increase, and we've factored all additional interest charges into the new 30-year programme. Section 5 summarises the proposals for the capital programme for next year. It confirms that we remain committed to undertaking works needed to maintain and improve our existing stock to national quality, energy efficiency and safety standards. We will be increasing the supply of council housing, and we'll be continuing a programme of environmental works. Table 2 in section 5.3 confirms the total capital programme funding of £77.303 million, and this table details how it will be funded. If you want, the full details of the programme are in Appendix 3. Councillor McLachlan hinted on the consultation arrangements, and again would like to thank the members of the Budget Scrutiny Group and the Tenant Participation Coordination Group. It's not taken for granted. We absolutely appreciate it. And what this does, having summarised that, what we were saying, that the consultation took place with tenants in advance of proposing a 6.5% increase. Following a similar approach as previous years, we engaged with the Scrutiny Group and the Tenant Participation Coordination Group. The process also included online surveys, local area focus groups, a series of specific focus groups, and direct feedback with individual tenants, and that was through email and text. A summary of the feedback is set out in section 6.4. This confirms the agreement that the Council can't continue to absorb the high cost of delivering services, and and we need to increase rents in line with inflation. And finally, and gratefully, they supported the proposal for a multi-year rent increase with an annual review. Section 7 confirms there are no direct employee implications associated with the report. Section 8 clarifies that there are detailed financial implications. These are set out throughout the report and are contained in the appendices. If I could bring you back to the recommendations in Section 2, the report comes with 4 recommendations. Members have been asked to endorse the proposed rent increase of 6.5% in 2024-25, with a further 6.5% rent increase in 2025 and 26. Members are also being asked to endorse the loan fund review and the HRA capital programme of £77.303 million in 24-25. And subject to your approval, the report requests for these recommendations to be referred to the Executive Committee and thereafter to go to full council for approval. Thanks very much, Chair. And I should say I'm joined by members of staff throughout the resource, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Stephen. I'll move the recommendations.
And I'll second that.
And I see I've got some questions online at least. Councillor Grant Ferguson.
Good morning, thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of questions actually, if that's all right. Just under section 6.5, pages 43 to 44. I'll give you 2 questions just now. Question 1 is, I would like to know what is the actual number of the 37% of respondents who supported the 6.5% increase, if that's possible. And question number 2, if you don't mind, is are you able to provide the demographics of the 37% of respondents who supported the 6.5% increase? And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Grant. I'm going to ask Stephen to address that one.
Okay, then. Okay, thanks, Chair. And thanks for the question. In total, we received 1,269 responses to the survey, and 37% of those 1,269 responses were in favour of the 6.5% increase. And actually, that figure actually changed towards the end when we had a bit further analysis. That moved up to 38%. The second part of your question was to ask about the demographics of how we arrived at that, and I'm not sure if you have that information. I don't think we do, unfortunately, but it was 38% of the people responded were in favour of the 6.5% increase.
Thanks, Stephen. Andrea Cowan.
Thanks, Chair. Morning, everyone. I just wanted to touch on the rent increase again, and I just want to know how the annual review will impact this. If we're agreeing today to 6.5% over 3 years, if next year's review the tenants don't agree with that, or there's a substantial drop in the rate of inflation, and the 6.5% would then look very high. So just really wondering what will be considered at the review, and will it have an impact on the budget going forward? Thank you.
I think the most important thing is it will be reviewed, and that was touched upon during the report. And it's a good question, because inflation can go up or down, and we will review that at the time. Stephen, would you like to add anything to that?
I think you've already answered the question. Yet we will be undertaking a full review next year at the same time in a normal way. We'll be consulting with tenants, we'll be consulting with the Budget Scrutiny Group, we'll be consulting with the Tenant Participation Coordination Group, we'll be carrying out the various focus groups, and we'll be encouraging tenants to contact us directly. And we'll be using all the information available at that time, and we'll make a proposal based on the circumstances at that time. So I can give you that commitment. It will be a full review, the same way as we do it normally.
Thanks, Andrea. No more questions? No. Okay, so we'll move on to the next item, which is item 9, housing allocation policy, and it's the local letting plans 24-25. Cameron Mitchell for that, please. Cameron.
Thanks very much, Chair. The purpose of this report, as noted at section 1.1, is to advise on the progress we've made in the current year against the letting targets set out in the local letting plans, and to seek approval for 2 things: the 24-25 letting targets and the local letting initiatives to be in place in 24-25. At the background in section 3, sections 3.1 to 3.3 of the report outline the purpose of local letting plans. At 3.2, the report confirms that on an annual basis, local letting plans are published for each housing management area, detailing the annual letting targets for both mainstream and sheltered properties and the local letting initiatives in operation area. Section 4 of the report notes the relevance of the local letting plans in the context of the Rapid Housing Transition Plan. Moving on to a look at the year that we're in, 23-24, and the achievement against the targets that were set. This is summarised in section 5, with the projected outcome in relation to targets for both mainstream and sheltered properties detailed in appendices 1 and 2. Section 5.3 confirms that it's projected that across South Lanarkshire performance in relation to the urgent housing need list will be above the target level. This can be attributed quite clearly to a significant increase in the homelessness that's occurred both locally and nationally, which we'll touch on later on today's agenda. Consequently, lets to transfer and waiting lists are projected to be below target. Section 5.4 notes that sheltered housing lets are projected all to be within target in the different areas. Section 6.1 notes that letting targets proposed for mainstream properties across South Lanarkshire for each of the 4 housing management divisions are set out in Appendix 1, and at 6.2 notes the range of factors, which includes the continuing high level of demand, and again, particularly from homeless households, which have been taken into account in setting the targets proposed for each local letting plan area. Section 7 notes the continuing high level demand for sheltered housing across South Lanarkshire, and 7.3 highlights that the letting targets proposed for sheltered housing across South Lanarkshire for each of the 4 housing management areas are set out in Appendix 2. Turning to Section 8, this section notes the role and purpose of local letting initiatives, and the 8.2 notes the 6 local letting initiatives are currently in place in South Lanarkshire, which are detailed in full at Appendix 3. And 8.3 notes the proposal that all 6 will be continued into 2024-2025. Section 8.4 in the report draws out that in the previous local letting plan report presented to committee in March 23, it was noted that during 23-24 a proactive approach would be taken to support council tenants under occupying larger properties to downsize to a smaller property when they wish to do so. Section 8.7 confirms in the year-to-date 39 tenants of 4 and 5 bedroom properties have been assisted to move to a smaller, more suitable home as part of this. At 8.8 the report notes it's proposed that we're going to continue with this proactive approach during the year ahead. Turning back to the recommendations detailed at section 2.1, the committee is asked to approve the following 4 recommendations. Firstly, that progress against the 23-24 letting targets is noted. Secondly, that the 24-25 mainstream housing letting targets attached to Appendix 1 be approved. Thirdly, that the 24-25 sheltered housing letting targets attached to Appendix 2 be approved. And finally, that the local letting initiatives attached to Appendix 3 be approved. Thanks very much, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Cameron. Lots of information, and just a couple of things that I wanted to highlight is, first of all, the sheltered housing. I see that there are almost 1,200 people on the waiting list for sheltered housing, and last year there were 112 sheltered homes became available. So obviously there's a huge discrepancy in those figures. I know that amenity housing is in the projection for new build, but I just wanted to comment that I think it's essential that we help people to stay in their own homes with adaptations, etc., for as long as possible, given that there's no sheltered housing for them to move to. That was my first point. The other thing I wanted was to welcome was 8.4, the proactive approach to encouraging downsizing. I think everybody would know someone who's in a house that's too big for them. And I know it's difficult to persuade people to move because it's their home. But I'm glad to see that we're trying that and that we're having some success. Obviously, this frees up family homes for families who are, predominantly on our waiting list, desperate for these larger houses. I just wondered, I know that there are some additional points available for under occupancy, and I know that other councils have tried financial incentives to cover perhaps removal costs or redecoration of a new home. And I just wondered if any thought had been given to those sorts of incentives just to try and bolster those numbers. Thanks.
Thanks, off. Cameron.
Thanks very much, Councillor Cowley. I think the initiative of Progress of the Year was that, and just try to encourage support, identify, and there was a bit of work done between people at my own section and the local teams to see where were the people who were actually in these situations. And again, actually using a bit of sense to actually think, is there an indication that folk would be interested? You know, what upset somebody by going when they're speaking about their home they're in. So that was done. I think that resulted in that. I think then as we go, I think what we've agreed through our own management team is we'll continue that into the year and look at what we achieve. I think moving more towards, we started I think with a 5 apartment, 4 bed, and when we'd moved on to the 4 apartment, 3 bed, and I think we'll focus more on that in the year. I think in South Lanarkshire you're always faced with the fact that the predominance of 2-bed houses, you know, and try to fit where most of their demand is for single people. So we're always trying, and we've got such differential demand and supply profiles for Carnwath to Cambuslang. So it's the letting plans help you tailor that a bit. But it's, I think that what we've done through that initiative, I think, is tried to use the kind of a proactive approaches, as we say, to actually achieve a result that will continue to try and build it and consider the other incentives. I mean, I think that's whether that was helpful, as we did in previous initiatives, for example, around under occupancy relating to bedroom tax, which was back a wee bit of time. Thanks.
Okay, Janine Killikas.
Hi, just a wee question about Appendix 3, Rutherglen, restricting lets to urgent housing need up to 45% in Greenhill Court. I was just wondering how that figure was arrived at, because it's still quite a high percentage, and what the rationale was behind that restriction to 45%. And additionally, I wondered what consideration is given to not housing families with children under 16 years of age at Greenhill Court, because I know obviously the council's got a policy of not housing under 16s in high-rise properties. And Greenhill Court is essentially a high-rise just on its side, if you like. So yeah, that's my question.
Thanks, Janine. I'm going to ask Sharon to address that question. Sharon.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor. So just a bit of an update then. So for the Cambuslang Rutherglen division, the target for our urgent housing need is sitting between 55 to 65%. And you'll see that this year we've been actually achieving much higher in terms of our lets to the urgent homeless list. The reason that we've restricted it, so it's been reduced for Rutherglen to up to just 45%, and that's to minimise the number of homeless lets made within that block, because we take account of historical issues that we've had there in Greenhill Court, and we just want to ensure that that doesn't arise again. So in terms of actually reaching that figure, it's up to 45%, and the local management team continually monitor that. So if issues do arise within Greenhill Court, they'll take recognition of that and reduce the lets. But the local letting plan allows for that discretion to be applied solely in Greenhill Court. In terms of Greenhill Court, we don't classify that as a multi-storey, and given it's due to the level of floors in Greenhill Court. But I take account of what you say, it's a particularly big block. However, that equates to a percentage of our stock within the Rutherglen area as well, and we require that in order to accommodate families. And you'll come on to that in the homelessness paper, where we touch on the amount of families that we've now got. So we need to take account of that. Hopefully that clarifies. Thanks.
Thank you, Sharon. Next question is Alan Falconer. Alan, there you go.
Thanks, Chair. Just one's an observation, the second one's a question. Just recently in council business, I travelled between Newcastle and South Shields, and all the way down there in Jarrow and Beaton Charleston, there's a lot of private new build there, but attached to it was a lot of sheltered housing, built obviously at the same time. And I know we've got the policy building social housing when you build. Do we also have the policy of building sheltered housing?
Sharon.
Thanks, Councillor Faulkner. So what we've agreed with our partners in health and social care through this year's SHIP is that we've got progressive housing approach. So we're looking at our new build sites where we think that would be most suitable to include older people type living there. So whether that be like bungalow housing or amenity style flats or extra care models or technology enabled properties, we have made that commitment, and we'll be bringing that to future committee as well around our joint partnership that we're having with health and social care. Thanks.
Yep, come back in, Alan.
Page 51, 8.4, the last sentence, a proactive approach to support council house tenants in under-occupying larger properties. Has that been implemented locally?
There you go.
Yeah, I'm just asking a question. So a two-bedroom house would move somebody into that for a one-bedroom house, a single person?
Alan, I know, sorry to interject here, but I know that you've raised this before, and it's more a local ward issue here that you're asking about. We don't know the circumstances. We have discussed this before. You don't know the circumstances of the actual people we're talking about, and neither would we discuss them if we did know. So I'm just putting a wee word of caution. Sharon, is there anything you would like to add to that?
Thanks, Councillor Faulkner. So in terms of section 8.4 and 8.5, yeah, we have completed that review of our 4-bedroom properties across South Lanarkshire, which has proven successful. We've actually managed to rehouse some people who are now single tenants into smaller properties, freeing up the 4-bedroom for families. So as Cameron noted, we are now moving on to start the review this new financial year for our 3 beds. But in terms of your separate query for single people, we do queue single people for 1 and 2-bedroom properties due to the very low number of stock that we've got across South Lanarkshire and for 1-bedrooms. So we've got a need to queue people for both. So someone, and a single person can absolutely move from a 1-bedroom to a 2-bedroom. They can apply in the transfer list, whether it be for medical reasons or aspirational, and still be awarded a 2-bedroom. Thanks.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay, Alan, back in.
Ruling there, sorry. You're ruling there. It seems a bit strange, I've got to say, right, in general, that we're allocating a one person a 2-bedroom house which could accommodate a family of 4. Just my observation. Thank you.
Like I said, Alan, you don't know the circumstances, and if you do, we wouldn't be speaking about them here. Every individual case is dealt with in its own merits, and we just don't know the circumstances. So, and I know that there's been written correspondence, and that question has been answered to you prior to coming to this meeting. But thanks for your input, Andrea Cowan.
Hi, thanks again, Chair. Sorry, I just wanted to come in the back of what Janine was saying. Greenhill Court falls within our ward, as you may know, I don't know. So I just wanted to say that I welcome the reduction and on urgent housing because the tenants in Greenhill Road who are permanent tenants, there's definitely a feeling that there's too much temporary accommodation and not, nothing against individuals, but the neighbours change a lot, and I think that causes its own issues, regarding sort of community type feelings, and it is a block where we have a high level of antisocial behaviour. I've currently got 2 constituents who are dealing with really serious antisocial behaviour in and around Greenhill Court. So hopefully this new policy will reduce the turnover, and hopefully there'll be more of a community feel, which should hopefully lead to less antisocial behaviour. So I'd just like to welcome that. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. I don't have any more questions, so I'll move that report. I think I have moved it. Have I moved it? If I haven't, I'll move it again.
And I'll second it.
Thank you very much. Item 10 on the agenda is the South Lanarkshire Council Customer Involvement Strategy 24 to 29, and it's Sharon Egan for that.
Thanks, Chair. Again, I would like to offer out thanks to tenants in regard to this paper for agenda item 10 and for their continued support with the strategy. So the purpose of the report is to seek approval from today's committee for the introduction of the revised customer involvement strategy, which will take effect from the 1st of April 2024. So section 3 notes the background. So this is the 5th strategy prepared in accordance with the requirements of the Housing Scotland Act, and the current strategy relating to our approach to our customer involvement was approved in Housing and Technical Resources Committee in May 2018. On the 14th of December 2022, our committee approved updated policy and strategy review schedule and confirmed that a review of the Council's customer involvement strategy would take place during 2023. So the aim of this strategy is to ensure extensive engagement with tenants and other customers to inform important decisions taken across housing and our related services. Section 4 discusses the pre-consultation stage, which we have already went through. And I'll take you on to Section 5, provides a key summary of the changes from the current strategy. So we have a focus on undertaking a review of local engagement arrangements, with the aim of offering a variety of options that fit the needs and aspirations of tenants and our customers. We recognise that times have changed and that our customers do want to interact differently. While some prefer the face-to-face, there's a different approach. So we want to enhance our approach working alongside communities. We want to continue to develop new ways of working and further develop our participatory budgeting to ensure that customers can help inform key aspects of our budget. One of the other key changes within the strategy is that we want to develop our customer portal, which will form part of our new integrated housing management system. So Section 6 discusses the key features, which notes the 4 strategic outcomes with the overall goal to allow our customers to engage. So those the key strategy there is noted at Section 6.2 and again at 6.4. Section 7 on page 59 details our formal consultation process, and then Section 8 discusses our next steps. So I'd like to take you back to Section 2, which is our recommendations, and that the revised customer involvement strategy as attached to Appendix 1 is approved, and also the revised strategy be implemented with effect from the 1st of April 2024. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sharon. I'll move the recommendations.
And I'll second that.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions? Andrea Cowan?
Sorry, I think that was my fault. I pressed the button again. Thanks, yeah, it's me again. I just really wanted to welcome the review in the customer engagement strategy. I have attended, last year I attended a tenants participation group, and there was myself, the local housing manager, and one lady. The 3 of us were online, which didn't really seem like, a very a very effective consultation. And I know that many efforts have been made by all council departments, and that 1,200 participants is actually quite a good number compared to some consultations. But I certainly welcome the fact that we're trying to reach out to other people. I think as well there's a concern that people who take part in these every year almost become part of the system. And we just, I think, need some fresh input into these things. And I know from local experience that some of the GP surgeries in Cambuslang and Rutherglen offer very discreetly debt advice, and that there's just a poster in the waiting room. And so that's just bringing advice to people in a different environment. And I wonder if perhaps we could do that with housing. We don't want to wait until people have a problem to contact us, which, is probably the only time that most people would contact their housing office. And I think another good example locally, and probably throughout South Lanarkshire, but the citizens' advice go into one of the church halls one afternoon, and then they go to a different church hall another afternoon, which means that people can just pop in, and they publicise that quite widely. And I think these are different things, maybe sort of thinking outside the box, to use one of these terrible terms, that we should maybe be thinking about. I just wondered if there were any plans along those lines. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Cowan. So yeah, absolutely. We recognise that we need different platforms or opportunities for our customers to engage. So historically, we've had our local housing forums, but what we have been doing, similar to what you've mentioned there in your GP surgery or in the churches, is that we've been piloting in Blantyre, where we've had housing officers, not in necessarily like a housing or council hall, but in where there may be events for mother and toddler, mother and baby sessions, and we've had a housing officer in there having like a local surgery in Blantyre, and that's an opportunity for tenants or customers to approach us, get housing advice or get information about their rent account. So we've been trialling that, and that will form part of what we want to roll out. What has always kind of proven to be quite popular is to the state walkabouts. And we recognise that some tenants are interested in participating about their own local community and not necessarily about the Hamilton area or the East Kilbride area as an overall. So we've been working alongside locality managers to reintroduce them, having the police there, having representation from community resources, and that just brings people out and want to get involved in their own neighbourhood. And that also helps about the participatory budgeting, because then they're quite informed that maybe this pathway would be improved or some of the open space areas. So absolutely, we will take that forward. Thanks.
Thanks, Sharon, and thanks, Andrea, for that question. Yeah, it's the walkabouts. I remember getting involved quite a lot in the past, but since COVID, I've not been involved in any. But I do know that housing staff do it. They call it in their journey cycle. Is that the correct term for it? To do? But it's better if you do get more people involved, councillors and people from different agencies. So that is a positive thing. And thanks, Andrea, for raising that. No more questions. Okay, move on to the next item, which is the homelessness pressures, impact and proposals. Back to you again, Sharon.
Thanks, Chair. So some of you have already been part of the discussions that we've been having across the council in regard to homelessness. So this paper comes to our committee this morning to provide an update on the current challenges resulting from the unprecedented demand for our statutory homelessness services, and also to highlight actions that we are progressing and what we propose in order to mitigate some of the challenges that we're facing. So section 3 of the report sets out the background in terms of the legal duties we have in regard to responding to homelessness. I also wanted to note that the Council has had a strong track record of effective delivery of homelessness services over the past years. We've had a commitment to preventing and alleviating homelessness, and that's been a continued strategic focus for over 20 years, which is clearly set out within our local housing strategy and within the community plan. The following paragraphs then go on to discuss our implementation of the 5-year Rapid Rehousing Transition Plan and the success that we've had from that. Notably, at 3.7, the 4th year of our RRTP made a significant increase, saw a significant increase in our presentations and caseloads. So you'll see that the overall caseload for our duty to offer secure accommodation increased by 46%. So from a record low, in terms of, that's what I mean there about our success, we were below 860 homeless households during 2021. We then increased to 966 by March 2022, then up to 1,407 by March 23. At the end of reporting period 10 there, we were at 1,575. So you can see that we're very close to doubling in our homelessness households. So section 3.10 discusses the debates that have happened and taken place nationally. So that includes a thematic review by the Scottish Housing Regulator, and also a report that was produced by Solace and Alacho. And more recently, you'll have seen as well that there's 3 local authorities within Scotland who have now declared a housing emergency. So focusing on South Lanarkshire, if I take you to section 4, which is page 89 of the report, the local issues there, our homelessness presentations have increased by a further 15%. There's been a further 14% in that increase in the duty to accommodate, and the number of homeless households has increased overall by 47%. So this has created a significant pressure on our resources, increasing the likelihood that the council could struggle to meet any statutory duties and maintain performance and costs in relation to key aspects of the homelessness service. I wanted to note that there is no specific reason for our increased homelessness presentations. We have reviewed our reasons for approach, and there is not one kind of stand out for a significant increase to what we've seen previously. The main reason that relates to people's approach for homelessness still links to being asked to leave the parental home, which accounts for 18% of our presentations. That's closely followed by relationship breakdowns, which is 17%. We have seen an increase in levels of private rented loss of accommodation across our subcategories, so that's where the private landlord has left the sector, and notably we have seen that vary across the localities, with East Kilbride being the most impacted, with landlords deciding to leave the sector. And therefore what we have seen then is 196 homeless presentations have resulted due to the loss of a private sector tenancy, which accounts for 11% of our presentations. So among these factors, the other implications that have affected or can affect the overall caseload is the removal of the consideration of local connection within Scotland. So for information, we previously, as part of the homelessness legislation, local connection was part of the investigation and the 4 hurdles. However, that was removed, and so far we have seen approximately 100 presentations from out with South Lanarkshire present to us. There is significant housing need arising also from humanitarian programmes, and I sit on the Asylum Partnership Board, and we discussed this with COSLA and the Home Office and the implications that could have. If I take you to section 4.10, during 22-23, the greatest increase in temporary accommodation was bed and breakfast placements, which increased by 89.8%. So that was significant for us in terms of cost, but also the fact that we have had families and children within bed and breakfast. I don't want to be all doom and gloom. At 4.13, it is worth noting that we remain a top performing local authority, and whilst areas of performance have certainly deteriorated, this is from a strong starting point where the council continues to compare well against peers, albeit nationally, you will see it's a deteriorating position. If I take you to section 5, page 92 of the report, this focuses on the next steps, and these are the mitigations that my local teams and our Central Homelessness Service have proposed in order to try and manage and maintain the challenges that we face. So I'll just quickly go through those, and if anybody's got any questions on that afterwards, happy to pick that up. So we want to revise and review our approach. We want to be really realistic from the first point of contact to anybody that seeks housing options advice about the timescales that you will wait for homelessness accommodation for your permanent offer, and be realistic about what the offer will likely be. We want to end repeat offers of temporary accommodation to those with challenging behaviour, and that's not just ending temporary accommodation, you're out tomorrow, it's where it's been significantly challenging and that person has abused their service. We will then won't offer repeat offers of temp. We want to work with customers to ensure they're queuing for a range of areas which will enable them to be housed within a reasonable period. So this will now involve individuals being asked to select whole locality housing areas and not being selected to just a few specific letting areas. We also want to increase that by saying that people need to select all property types and all heating types and not be selected to only queue for houses. Where we have applicants with minority access to children, so that could be 1 night a week, 2 nights in a fortnight, we want to queue them for multi-storey properties. That will be a change. We want to continue our pilot of our use of furnished properties as an emergency accommodation, and we continue to work to increase our core temporary accommodation options. So as you know, Lindsay House is closed, so I'll be bringing a paper to next committee, hopefully, on the new proposal for supported accommodation. We will be reducing the Let's Urgent Homeless. As you see this year, we significantly increased and are likely to be over target for a Let's Urgent Homeless, and that was linked to issues that we had last year relating to our voids, but also to keep throughput to temporary accommodation. We want to increase our lets to the transfer list and then generate that turnover, and then the secondary lets will be allocated to the urgent homeless list. And the final point there is that I will continue as Head of Housing to continue to discuss this nationally and manage, have active participation and discuss opportunities with the Scottish Government. 5.2, we wanted to just highlight that we recognise the impact that homelessness has on children, especially being in temporary accommodation and in bed and breakfast. Therefore, we want to consider opportunities to minimise the impacts of that to children and look to see where we can make best use of some of our housing stock. So Councillor Faulkner, just what you've said, we will take that into consideration. Whilst we recognise that we need 2 bedrooms for single people, we will also apply discretion in an aim to reduce the number of children that we have in temporary accommodation. And at 5.5, we are proposing a communication strategy will be developed to accompany the review of personal housing plans. So obviously we have a caseload of over 1,500. We want to be reviewing those personal housing plans to make sure that those existing homeless households have maximised their areas that they're queuing for and their property types. And we have been working locally to compile an action plan in order to take this forward. So if I take you back to section 2 of the report, our recommendations are: 1, that the scale and nature of the increase in demand for homeless assistance, both nationally and locally, is noted, that the pressure and impact within South Lanarkshire stemming from this increase, which is above those being experienced nationally, is also noted. The third recommendation, that the mitigation measures in place be noted, and recommendation 4, that the proposed further actions as discussed here in section 5 be noted. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. I'll move the recommendations.
I'll second it.
And I see I've got Andrea Cowan. Welcome back, Andrea.
Thanks very much. And I'm like the one-woman questioner here. Thanks very much, Sharon. I'm glad you said you were trying not to be all doom and gloom, but it looks as though it's all doom and gloom. Unfortunately, homelessness is a doom and gloom issue. I just wanted to, it's a couple of things to be fair that you did touch on, but I saw that the homelessness is going up throughout the whole country for all of the reasons that you mentioned. But it does concern me slightly that South Lanarkshire's homelessness has increased 19% when the national average is 9%. And I know there's no one cause, but I just wondered if you'd any thoughts on why, apart from South Lanarkshire being a great place to live, as to why the homelessness figure for South Lanarkshire has taken such a big jump.
Sharon?
Thanks, Councillor Cowan. So we were actually in South Lanarkshire, we were a wee bit later in taking the spike. So nationally we started to see it in 2022. The increases in homelessness started in other local authorities and they were reporting seeing that, and we were like, oh, we've no got that yet. It came to us a couple of months later. But honestly, we have reviewed the reasons. So increased people asking their family members to leave the parental home being the most prominent reason. The only thing that we can look to, and we have discussed it with the Scottish Government, is the removal of local connection. I know it's only 100, but 100 within 1,500 makes an impact. So seeing in circa of 100 extra additional households that we now require to provide secure accommodation for, which we wouldn't have to in the previous legislation. But that's the only thing that we've got any sort of evidence of. Thanks.
Sharon, can I ask about that, the local connections issue? If somebody comes to South Lanarkshire, do we know and are obliged to communicate if the local authority that they currently came from or currently live, can they have an application live in various different local authorities?
Good question. So the legislation, when that was removed, it means we no longer can signpost someone back. So say, for example, someone presents from Glasgow City. Previously, we would have said you don't have a local connection to South Lanarkshire, you should be presenting to Glasgow's casework team. Now they have the right to present anywhere they wish, so they can say, no, I want to present in South Lanarkshire, I want to live here, I want to live in Rutherglen. It's close to the boundary of Glasgow. But we have raised this nationally as well in the event that someone could have applications elsewhere, because obviously our integrated housing management system won't necessarily talk to Glasgow's. Yeah. So there's a bit that we have been raising that with the Scottish Government.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's potentially that could be happening then?
Potentially.
Yeah. Thanks very much. I come back in, Andrea.
Thanks. Sorry, I don't know if I've skipped somebody, but my mic was put off. So there was just another couple of things, if you don't mind, Sharon. And again, this is something that you touched on. Disappointed to see the use of bed and breakfast. I know that we prided at South Lanarkshire that we weren't using bed and breakfast. Or hotels, which it's really more hotels than, when I think of bed and breakfast, I think of something in Blackpool, but you know, it's more hotels that we're using. Do you have any idea how many children are currently being put up in hotels? Because this, for me, is really concerning. I'm just going to make a big assumption that a lot of women with children are possibly homeless due to relationship breakup, which is traumatic for children. And I really don't think putting them into hotels is beneficial to their mental health, the children or the mother. We've all been stuck in hotel rooms with a couple of kids on a rainy day, and we know what that's like. So, yeah, just a wee bit concerned about that. And just, if I can just ask one more question before I finish. You said that we're starting to use furnished accommodation. Could you just tell me a wee bit more about that? Where are we getting this furnished accommodation? Is it from the private sector? Is it something that we're providing furnished flats ourselves, or just a wee bit of information, please? Thank you.
Sharon, yep. Right, press the button, Sharon, and then wait, and we'll switch you on here. There you go.
Sorry. So yeah, I can give you a bit of an answer around the number of children in temporary accommodation. So for our quarter 3 return that we submit as our homelessness records to the Scottish Government, we were able to respond to say that we had 500 households with children and their children as part of the household and temporary accommodation in general. So we can't actually say that that's 500 children because it doesn't take account of their siblings, so it's 500 households with children. However, in terms of those in bed and breakfast, at the start of this week there was 13 rooms in hotels being used, and unfortunately I don't want to quote this morning, but I can get you that, how many children were in hotels. But we are using we keep using the term bed and breakfast, but I know what you mean, it's hotels. So yeah, we are using them on a daily basis at the minute. We had a period of time there where we were out of hotel use, and that's when we introduced these temporary furnished flats. So to give a bit of context to this, we were recognising that out of hours, it wasn't through the normal working day, out of hours we were getting people phoning up and saying, I need booked into the Premier Inn hotel. So we were saying, no, like, well, at first people were getting booked in because that's all we had, but we started to recognise that people are waiting 2 hours because then they know that's what they'll be placed in. They'll be placed in that type of hotel. So we decided to bring an alternative in where we would keep a small number, so it's just 3 that we've got. So 3 voids that we pulled their hours, they're council voids that we've made into temporary furnished flats, that we've decided we will use these as our emergency placements, and that we recognised we had a refusal rate. So when people started to phone about ours, oh, can I get temporary accommodation? That's fine. We've got a flat in Les Mahago for you. Can you make your own arrangements to get there? Do you need transport? And all of a sudden people say, no, I want to go into the hotel. No, we're not offering the hotel, there's a place. And people would then, we started to see a trend of people then refusing and saying, no, I don't need temporary accommodation now. So we were concerned that we were actually generating business for ourselves because people got to recognise the types of temporary accommodation we were offering on a Saturday or a Sunday for our homelessness at hours team. So that's why we introduced these. So we've got 3 emergency flats that we're using on a short-term basis to try and change that culture that's started about our hotel use. So, but I can absolutely get you the number of children in B&B this morning. I can share that.
Thank you very much for those questions, and it's an interesting report, and there's quite a lot of people still waiting to ask. But I was mindful at the start of this that we had some time before 11 o'clock, but it's now gone 11 o'clock, and I believe Councillor Ferguson has requested the break. So we'll take a break for 5 minutes just now, and we'll see you back at 10 past. Thank you very much, and we'll resume the rest of the questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Testing 1, 2, 1, 1, 2. Yes. You never close your eyes. Could I have your attention, please, people? That's now 11 minutes past, so I think we can resume the meeting. Sorry to interrupt that wee conversation. Having a good sweetie there, Stephen, are you?
Live streaming as well, just so you know. But, yeah.
Well, I know, that was a bit of fun, isn't it? Okay, welcome back, everyone. So, and thanks for your questions and comments there, Andrea. It's now Gladys Miller. Gladys?
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, I'm still laughing. You've got a good singing voice.
Well,
I was waiting in the rest.
I can do the bagpipes as well. I'm quite talented that way. Anyway. Sorry.
No, thanks. That was an interesting report. And I'm aware through discussions with property agents that the introduction of licensing and top-up landlord registration, insurances, etc., has been a trigger for some landlords that are selling up. And in a number of cases, their portfolio has really been their pension pot, and they've just reached that age that they want to sell up and retire. And I know we've all had constituents in the position that they've had a notice to quit because the landlords are selling up. Aware that Grant's got one at the moment. I was wondering, when private tenants receive a notice to quit and apply for housing, is there an opportunity for the council to approach the landlord, or the property was a previous civic housing with a view to buying it back?
Sharon?
Thanks, Gladys. Yeah, we changed the buyback policy so that now we have got an internal process that if anybody presents as homeless for that particular reason, we will take the landlord details and try and approach them to, if it's an ex-council property, to buy that back. So absolutely, we've been doing that, and particularly in East Kilbride, where we've seen the significant increase there. Thanks.
And just an additional question on that. If that were to be the case, would that tenant be able to remain in that same property? That may be a more tricky question.
Unfortunately, no, because the urgent homeless list we allocate in a date order. So although that is, it might not seem appropriate, morally we had a similar situation this year where we've seen a family who were out of a 4-bedroom and we managed to buy that back. But we have urgent homeless applicants that are now waiting up to 4 years for 4 bedrooms in East Kilbride, and we had to allocate it to somebody who'd already been waiting in temp rather than the existing occupant. So no, we don't buy back with sitting tenants, we buy back empty properties. Thanks.
I actually knew that, Sharon, but I just asked that question for the benefit of everybody else, because that has come up in my own casework where people have made that request. Richard Lockhart.
Hi, thanks, Chair. It's almost a supplementary to what Gladys brought up. I was interested, I don't know whether Sharon can provide the numbers, but the problem with landlords in bailing out of the sector is a national one. It's nothing just South Lanarkshire. And I'm just wondering if you have any figures for the percentage of lost available rental houses which have resulted really from, if you like, I think the rather draconian freeze on rents which we are currently living with. And whether, this is only going to get worse, I suspect, and whether you're making representations perhaps to the Scottish Government along with other councils that perhaps this is one of the increasing causes of homelessness, and that perhaps they should consider releasing the brakes, if you like, on this policy.
Cameron.
Thanks so much, Councillor Lockhart. There is no kind of reliable figures in the private rented sector in terms of absolute numbers. We've got some figures we can use for proxy. The Scottish Government is currently looking at wider rent control in the private rented sector, and one of the things I think has bedevilled it has been the lack of actually reliable information on numbers and rents. We've got numbers, but certainly not the actual rent levels as well in terms of the access point. I think in terms of representations we've made, and there's been a number of responses the council has made probably over the past 4 or 5 years to change in the private rented sector, and we've always indicated there was a balance to be achieved between absolutely supporting the sector to provide good quality housing that's affordable and well managed, but also ensuring that landlords are encouraged to continue to participate such that that supply, which has played a vital role in meeting housing need over the past 10, 12 years in South Lanarkshire, continues. And I think that's probably, I think Sharon picked out that figure, 11% of homeless households becoming homeless because they did from home from a private tenancy. That figure I remember when doing Sharon about 2.53%, so you can see an increase there. And I think certainly keeping an eye on those numbers is something we're really keen to do.
Thanks, Cameron. David Shearer.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask Sharon, she mentioned that we are going to, new homeless applicants will be asked to specify a larger area and they won't be able to specialise which heating system they would prefer. Now, in the larger areas, they may be doing that because of a violent partner, and on the heating system, it may be because of a health issue. So my question really is, are we going to use our own common sense so that we're not creating problems further down the line? Thank you, Chair.
Sharon?
Thanks, Councillor Shearer. Absolutely. So we will look at everybody on an individual basis, and if anyone has a particular reason that they are fleeing violence or harassment or any concern that they can't reside within a particular letting area, we would recognise that and take that on board. So that will absolutely be considered, and the same goes for a medical reason, not just in terms of heating type, but also property type. So if someone had a mobility need, we wouldn't be insisting that they queue for top floor flats. So we'll absolutely take that into consideration. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. Kirsty Williams.
Thanks, Chair. Just wanted to clarify with Sharon, is one of the possible reasons for the above average increase in homelessness in Scotland is our proximity, obviously, to the biggest city in Scotland, which is Glasgow. I work with out-of-hours homelessness services in Glasgow. I'm certainly acutely aware of the housing emergency there. So I imagine, for example, like Fife to Edinburgh, there will be a displacement of homelessness people from those cities.
Sharon?
Absolutely, yeah.
Supplementary, carry on.
And just to go back to the issue that Davy touched on in terms of the potential for multiple homeless applications, it's just to clarify, obviously our systems don't necessarily communicate with other local authorities, but certainly caseworkers in Glasgow, for instance, they do make telephone contact with the previous local authority from where an individual is presenting, just to clarify if there is a live homeless application. I just wanted to get clarification from yourself as to whether that is just the standard part of the process for staff when they are taking homeless applications.
It would appear that we don't have anything that speaks to each other, but there's nothing wrong with a phone call, I don't suppose, Sharon. Is that something?
So as part of the homelessness application process, we will ask the customer, like if they have presented elsewhere, that is part of the investigation process. We will also take their previous address history. So if they've had a previous tenancy, as part of our investigation, we're able to contact the previous landlord and we can do part of our investigation in that way. But in terms of if someone tells us that they haven't presented elsewhere, then I need to check our consent to share process, which is part of the paperwork that the homeless customer will sign, allowing us to share their information with other partners. So I will double check that and make sure that that has, I'll seek legal advice to make sure that our data protection allows for us to contact. Well, I'll come back to you on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Carl Johnson Dempsey. Carl?
Thank you, Chair. I think when we talk about landlords selling up, we have to remember that they will either be selling to another landlord, in which case there is no change in the share of private rented accommodation, or they will be selling to a family, which is surely a better use than than a private landlord. So I think that's important when we talk about, you know, that. I know from my own experience, actually, I've been in properties which have been sold by landlords, and actually in one case, the new landlord offered it to me. So, questioning whether we are able to help facilitate that in any way, but also on the point of keeping tenants in a property when the council buys it, are we able to look at possibly changing that policy where we currently reallocate it? I understand the need to house people around the homeless list for a long time, but there's also value in keeping a family, or not even if it's a family, a single person, whoever it is, in a home that they have been living in, and keeping them part of their community. I think there's value in that as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Carl. Sharon?
Thanks, Councillor. So in terms of it, when the property goes up for sale, or we will approach a private landlord, we'll approach a private landlord with a view to we want to buy it. We won't get involved in facilitating or supporting for any other private landlord to come in and buy a property, because that would be a private matter and a private sale. But we will try and put in an offer ourselves to buy that back, and if unsuccessful, we will walk away. In terms of the policy, so it was previously the open market purchase scheme, where the properties had to be on the open market before we would step in and make an offer to purchase. We changed that last year? In 2023, sorry, to the buyback policy, where it's no longer needs to be on the open market. So we can now approach landlords directly, or people can come to us and say, I'm thinking of selling this property, are you interested? And it takes away the whole part of someone having to go and get agents' fees and things. So that's been, but we haven't had any, we've always maintained that there'll be no sitting tenant within the property, and that we're buying back an empty property. Thanks.
Thanks, Sharon. Okay, I don't have any more questions to that, so we'll move on to the next item, and it's item 12. I do believe, is this the item where members have declared an interest? So, Helen, could you deal with that, please?
Just checking that Councillor Mars and Lockhart have left the meeting. Still seeing them both joined remotely. If you could both please leave. That's it, Chair, they're both left.
Okay, thank you very much, Helen. Item 12 on the agenda is lease of proposed development Lanark Community Workshop at Lanark Racecourse, and that's Jerry McParland. Jerry, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of the report, which is on pages 95 to 98 of the papers, is to advise on the action taken in terms of Standing Order number 37C, because of the timescales involved, by the Executive Director in consultation with the Chair and ex-officio member, to approve the granting of a lease of the proposed Lanark Community Workshop at Lanark Racecourse to the Lanark Lanimer Committee. The background to this is that in October 2015, the Council applied to the Scottish Government's Regional Capital Grant Fund to support the development of a Clydesdale Rural Development Centre in Lanark, and received the offer of £1 million against a project cost of £2 million. This original project couldn't be delivered due to difficulties in securing the identified site, and at the time searches for other locations were not fruitful. However, following exploration of other options, an opportunity at the racecourse has been identified, and the Scottish Government have confirmed that they are content for this project to be progressed. In addition, discussions have taken place with community representatives and potential occupiers who have indicated their support. The site comprises a footprint of a former stable block and associated land, and is sufficient to accommodate the proposed building, and planning consent has been obtained for 500 square metres of storage space and 500 square metres of brownfield land to be redeveloped. The community benefit from the project has been assessed in line with the community asset transfer process and qualifies for a 77% discount to market rental. In addition, in return for the fit-out cost of the building being completed at the Lanark's committee expense, a 5-year rent-free period has been agreed in principle. So the proposed terms are listed in section 4.6 of the report and are for a full repairing and insuring lease of 20 years with a rent review every 5 years and an initial 5-year rent review period. And I would therefore refer members back to section 2 of the report and ask that the authority granted to conclude matters and enter legal agreements on the principal terms listed in section 4.6 of this report be noted. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jerry. I'll move the recommendations.
And I'll second it.
Thank you very much. And I see I've got David Shearer here. David?
Thank you, Chair. Just to welcome this report and thank the officers for all the good work they've done with the community to achieve this. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Alan Faulkner?
Thanks, Chair. It was just a point at yesterday's community enterprise, it was raised that Lanark Racecourse, the tote building was being retained. Is this part of this?
Jerry?
No, that's a separate matter. Thanks.
Okay. No more questions. Next item on the agenda is item 13, acquisition of houses at Jackton Hall. Sorry?
I'm just going to invite the councillor.
Oh, beg your pardon. Sorry. Need to invite the other members back in. Okay. Welcome back, Julia and Richard. Next item on the agenda is item 13, acquisition of houses at Jackton Hall, Jackton, section 75, planning reference EK 090218, and Bracken Hill Farm, Hamilton, section 75, planning reference HM 100052. Going to ask Jerry to take us through that again, please. Jerry?
Thanks again, Chair. The purpose of this report, which is contained in pages 99 to 102 of the papers, is to seek approval from the committee to acquire 89 homes across 2 developments at Jackton Hall, Jackton, and Bracken Hill Farm, Hamilton, from Barratt Homes for inclusion in the council's housing stock in fulfilment of the planning obligations associated with the development of these sites. The current local housing strategy was approved at the Exec Committee on 30th November 2022 and highlights a commitment to deliver housing across South Lanarkshire to meet housing need and support regeneration. The same committee approved a new affordable housing supply target to deliver an additional 1,300 homes by March 2027. On the 8th of November 23, the Strategic Housing Investment Programme for 24 to 29 was approved by Housing and Technical Resources Committee. And this includes projects with a total potential capacity for 2,442 affordable homes in South Lanarkshire and includes both Jackton Hall and Bracken Hill Farm. The Council entered discussions with Barratt Homes to fulfil their planning obligations for these sites through a turnkey arrangement, and the housing mix for the 89 units consists of 2, 3 and 4 bedroom houses, including cottage flats, terraced, semi-detached and detached properties. The proposal has been technically and commercially assessed and presents good value for money. It is therefore proposed to acquire 89 completed homes from Barratt Homes, subject to the conditions listed in section 4.3 of this report. And I would refer members back to section 2 of the report and ask that the acquisition of 89 completed affordable homes from Barratt Homes for a total price of £17.8 million to fulfil planning obligations and associated with the residential development of the sites be approved, and that the Executive Director be given delegated authority to authorise these transactions and instruct legal services to conclude transactions in the appropriate manner and in the best interest of the Council, with each individual transaction being in excess of the current £100,000 acquisition limit under the existing delegated power arrangements. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jerry. I'll move the recommendations.
And I'll second them.
With pleasure. I have Andrea. Andrea again.
Thanks, Chair. Good report. Thank you for that. Just really wanting to welcome the acquisition of these new homes. Makes a small dent in our waiting list, I know, but it's still really good to see them coming through. Good quality social housing and what we're looking for, 3 and 4 bedroom family houses. So, well done to all involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. I'm more of a glass half full. That's quite a large dent, I think. Jerry, 2, 3 and 4 bedrooms, maybe I should have known or have been told this at some point, but how many are 4 bedrooms? Have you got that detail there out of those 2 sites?
I don't have the breakdown in front of me, but I can certainly get that to you.
Okay. Because we know, I mean, it's been discussed earlier that there's a growing demand for larger size properties. I'm just curious as to the amount of those. Might have been 4 bedrooms. Maybe get that to me at some time, Jerry. Thanks very much. Right, I have no more questions. Item 14 on the agenda is the former David Milne Centre, 84 Old Mill Road, Uddingston, and it's an asset transfer to Rivals School of Martial Arts. Joanne Forbes, please.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report, as set out in pages 103 to 107 of your pack, is to advise committee of a request for community asset transfer of the former hall at 84 Old Mill Road, Uddingston, and recommend the terms of a lease. The Council received a formal request for community asset transfer on the 18th of September 2023 from Rivals School of Martial Arts. In line with the statutory process, public consultation was undertaken and a total of 57 representations received, 34 in favour and 23 raising objections. The primary purpose of, or the primary cause of objections was around the wider parking issues that are experienced in that particular part of Uddingston, although there was 1 or 2 concerns about impacts on other martial arts groups. The assessment panel met on the 12th of December and sections 3.6, 3.7 and 3.8 set out the matters that were taken into consideration by the panel. In summary, the property is suitable for the proposed use and has been lying vacant since March 2023. The organisation is well established and it already operates from 3 other locations across North and South Lanarkshire. The organisation is a registered charity and it has a track record of working with employability programmes and with young people with complex needs, and it's intending to develop those programmes further from this new facility. The Community Asset Transfer Working Group assessed the community benefits and recommended a 100% discount on the estimated market value rent of £8,200 per annum, and the vacant property costs associated with the building at the moment are estimated at £8,500. The proposal for asset transfer is based on a 20-year lease at a nominal rent as set out in the terms and conditions in 5.1 of your report. I refer the committee back to section 2 of the report and recommend that the lease of 84 Old Mill Road to Rivals School of Martial Arts is agreed on the terms and conditions in section 5.1. Thank you.
Okay, I'll move the recommendations.
And I'll second.
I've got Councillor Maureen Devlin. Maureen.
Thanks, Chair. It's just I welcome this report and the fact that it's a hall that isn't being used, but I sincerely hope they honour their commitment that the community will get access to this, because initially when I read the application, they really didn't do themselves a favour in the manner that they filled it out. It looked as though it was more going to be a private concern and therefore it would be taken, the community wouldn't get the same use of it. So that's just a comment I was making, that they do honour it, and if they don't, then we've got the recourse to go back in and bring it back into our use. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Maureen. It's a point well made, given the current circumstances. We're looking at all of the assets that we've got in our communities. Carl Johnson Dempsey. Carl?
Yeah, thank you. Pardon me, sorry. Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor McCallan, who gave me the opportunity to speak here today by allowing me to sub-forum. Like Maureen, when I first got sight of this community asset transfer application, I was a bit surprised because, yeah, it did seem at first glance just to be a kickboxing gym looking for a cheap rent, and it got my hackles up a wee bit. And I was prepared to oppose it, but then I got to hear from Ian, the council's community participation and development officer, I believe, about the work that Rivals Gym had been doing in Wishaw, Airdrie and East Kilbride. Obviously they are a Scottish charitable incorporated organisation, so a charity company effectively, and their motto is changing lives through martial arts. Ian organised a meeting between Sam, the co-founder of Rivals, and the ward councillors, and we got to hear from him directly the way that he would approach the gym, and how he approaches gyms and other areas, and how he would approach them in Uddingston. He told us about his reluctance to boast about his charitable nature because some of the service users wouldn't like to feel like charity cases, and I do understand that, but also want to make it clear the good that Rivals will do in Uddingston if this gets approved today. Uddingston has a problem with youth antisocial behaviour. A big part of that is that kids have absolutely nothing to do in this area. So they hang around in big groups, smoking, drinking, breaking glass, fire raising, and committing crimes that it would be inappropriate to even name in this forum. And you know, it gets worse in the summer months when the evenings are warmer and brighter. Sam told us how he'd approach that, how he approaches it in East Scotland gyms and how he'd approach it here in Livingston. Him and the other trainers would go out at night, walk right up to these groups and introduce themselves, something that would be quite daunting for me and for most of us here, I think. He says he would explain what Rivals is all about and offer them some free sessions to get them in off the streets. Hopefully those sessions would spark something in them and lead to a positive change in their lives that can keep them involved in kickboxing going forward. Both the North and South Lanarkshire portions of Livingston are reporting serious youth ASB every single week, and Rivals Gym, in my opinion, is the sort of initiative that we need in this area to give young people a route to positive, structured expression, rather than the delinquency that we're seeing now, to be honest. Beyond the martial arts itself, he spoke about the below commercial rate hall and room rates for community groups during the day. And given that if the gym fails, we get the building back anyway, and in the meantime it will be maintained and repaired from its current poor state. I don't think there's much risk for the council. I don't think there's anything for us to lose by approving this, Cat. And that's why I hope we can get unanimous support for it, and if not, that you'll vote with me to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carl. That's a very comprehensive covering of the goings on in your ward, and obviously this is something that you welcome. Appreciate your comments. Kenny McCreary, other ward member coming back in.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I don't disagree with what's been said already. I think what we can, and I obviously went along to meet the young chap that runs the company and was quite impressed by him. The only thing I've got to say really is he seems to be taking over, or potentially, if it's agreed, taking over another one in Lark Hall, which is coming up next, I think, or soon today. And I'm just a bit concerned he may be spreading himself a little bit thin, because he's got a number of properties. But as has been said before, we do have the authority or the opportunity to take it back if things go wrong. So I'm certainly not against this plan. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Kenny. And there's no more questions, and with that we'll move straight on to the next item. As you've alluded to, it's item 15, former Hayles Hill Sports Barn, Donaldson Road, Lark Hall, and it's a lease to Rivals School of Martial Arts. Joanne Forbes again, please.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report, as set out in pages 109 to 113 of your pack, is to advise committee of a request for a short-term concessionary lease for the former Hayley's Hill Sports Barn in Lackhall on concessionary terms. This request is, as Councillor McCleary said, also from Rivals School of Martial Arts, as mentioned in the previous report. However, it is not a formal community asset transfer request. The organisation are seeking a short-term let of the vacant sports facility to enable the building to reopen for community use and to assess the longer-term viability of the project. I believe they recognise the concern that Councillor McCleary raised, that they don't want to take on too much and not then be able to deliver. The same assessment process has been applied as if it was a CAT, and sections 3.5, 3.6 and 3.7 of the report set out the matters that have been considered in assessing this request. In summary, the property is suitable for the proposed use and it is vacant and has been for some time. Other community groups have previously looked at the property for asset transfer, however all have withdrawn after detailed consideration of the costs. The organisation is a registered charity with a track record of delivering community benefits, and the proposal is considered low risk and removes a revenue liability for vacant property costs in the region of £35,000 per annum. The proposed terms and conditions of lease are set out in section 5.1, and I would refer committee back to section 2 and recommend the lease of the former Hayley's Hill Sports Barn to Rivals School of Martial Arts on the annual lease be approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Andrea. I'll move the recommendation.
I'll second it.
Thank you. I've got Andrea Cowan. Andrea.
Thanks. Thanks very much, Chair. I don't have any first-hand knowledge on this, but what Cal had to say about this company, you know, they sound exactly the type of firm or charity that we want to be dealing with. This is a really sensible idea, the lease, or the sort of try before you buy aspect of a CAT, which I think is, you know, is great, and I hope that the council are going to be open to that, because, you know, there are facilities that are lying empty, and there will be more coming down the line, as we know, and so I think this is an excellent opportunity for, I believe that currently Housing are speaking to over 50 organisations about CAT and CAT Light, as they're calling it. So this is great to see, and I hope that this encourages other community groups to get involved. There's very little risk for them at this stage, and it just lets them get their house in order, so to speak, before they take on a full transfer. So very welcome to see this, and I know it's coming in the next couple of items as well. So really just a general comment about making the best use of our facilities, and, you know, this seems like a good way forward. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Andrea. No other questions or comments. Item 16 is the former Spittal Community Centre, Carrick Road, Rutherglen, and former Toll Pitch Community Hall, Hamilton Road, Cambuslang, and it's a lease to the LEAP project. Over to you again, Joanne, please.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report, as set out in pages 115 to 119 of your pack, is to advise committee of the request by LEAP project for the lease of 2 properties on a concessionary basis, as we just described, a CAT Light. This is not a formal CAT application. The short-term leases of the former Spittal Community Centre and Toll Pitch Hall will enable the facilities to reopen for community use, and for LEAP to test the viability of running the facilities themselves before committing to any longer term arrangements. Again, we followed the same assessment process and considered the request and the matters that are set out in sections 3.5, 3.6 and 3.7 have been taken into account in reaching this recommendation. The LEAP is a well-established organisation that's well known within the area, and the properties are suitable for their proposed use. They offer befriending, handyman services, learning and leisure activities to the community, and intend to roll that out at these 2 locations. which they have previously used and booked when they were available for let. They also intend to make the facilities open in the evening to allow other community organisations to use the facilities. In summary, the grant of the leases is considered low risk to the council, and sections 5.1 and 5.2 of the report set out the proposed terms and conditions of the two leases, and I would refer committee back to section 2 and recommend the grant of the one-year leases on concessionary terms for the former Spittal Community Centre and Toll Pitch Halls to LEAP project. Thank you.
Thanks, Joanne. I'll move the recommendations.
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. And Norman Ray. Norman?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would like to welcome this. Obviously, well, one of these halls is in Cambuslang, in particular in my area, but I think that it's a good example of how bringing these halls that have obviously Leisure Trust has withdrawn from, bringing them back into use for the community. And I think LEAP's a good organisation that does a lot of good work in the local community. So hopefully this will be successful and allow these halls to continue to provide facilities for the community.
Thanks, Norman. Alistair Fulton?
Welcome this report and thank the officers for doing this. LEAP have done a great lot of good work in both Cambuslang and Rutherglen areas for the last 30 years, and I hope that, you know, with the acquisition of these two halls, they'll continue their success and also bring life back into these halls. Okay, thanks for the opportunity to address this one. Thanks.
Thanks, Alistair. I don't have any more. Sorry? Yes, sure. Councillor Cowie.
Thanks, Chair. Like my two fellow colleagues, I would like to welcome this. Spittal Hall's been closed for a wee while and it's really missed in the community. I know the work that LEAP does and it's really great to see that the hall will be opened back up again. Thank you.
Here. No other questions or comments. The next items 17 and 18 are items for noting. I would suggest that I would move the recommendations in both these items unless anyone has got any other questions or comments. Can we agree to that? Thank you very much. Item 19 is there's urgent business of which I have none. However, I do believe that one of our esteemed members of our team is moving on to pastures new or maybe pastures old. Helen, it's going to be our last meeting today. She's leaving and going back to the leafy suburbs, I believe. Helen, I'd like to thank you very much for everything you've done and we wish you well in whatever you do next. And we're going to miss you. Thanks, Helen. Okay, the next meeting is on the 24th of April and I look forward to seeing you all then. Thanks very much for your attendance. There you go.
Thank you.
So you
should have told you after the meeting.
Sorry?